What is going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you my non-spoiler review for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, the 8th Mission Impossible film, and most likely the final one. I actually don't know if they have like spin-offs planned or anything, but within the main series, I do believe this is meant to be the final one. I really do love this franchise. I genuinely think it's one of my favorite movie franchises of all time. I think they're very consistent. My least favorite is still a film that I think is pretty good for the most part, so I really just enjoyed the ride throughout this franchise. I've actually reacted to most of them on this channel, so if you want to go check out those reactions, link will be in the description. But once we got to Dead Reckoning, I loved Dead Reckoning. I really loved what it set up, especially because of course it was the part one of a two-part story, and the Final Reckoning was the continuation of that story from Dead Reckoning. So I went into this knowing it was going to be the second chapter of the story, which is a good thing because it doesn't have to spend any time on it setting characters up and setting storylines up. You just get right into it. And to be honest, they didn't really get right into it. There was a lot more important stuff that they had to talk about in the first hour of this film, and I think it worked, but it still definitely works as a part two. So let's just get into this. I'm going to go through my positives, my negatives, and then give the movie a rating out of 10, of course, spoiler free. Starting off with the positives, this film is visually stunning. Like, probably one of the best looking movies I've ever seen, and I'm not really surprised about that because it's a Mission Impossible film. You know, Christopher McQuarrie has been very consistent with making his Mission Impossible movies just incredible to look at, and especially in IMAX. I mean, of course, I'm sure it's going to look good regardless, but seeing this in IMAX to me is kind of a must at this point. There are some stunt sequences and action sequences that just look incredible. Even just scenes that aren't really meant to be action scenes still are shot so well and visually look amazing. Definitely one of the best looking movies I've ever seen. I think the budget of this was really high, so they clearly put that budget to work because there's not a single point in this film where I thought anything looked a bit off. It was all stunning. There is one specific shot, might be up there as one of my favorite shots in film history. Not even kidding. And obviously this is a Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise. Of course it's going to have some of the best stunts you've ever seen, and there are two stunts in particular that I think are probably some of the craziest things I've ever seen, especially the one with the plane. Of course that's like the one that's being used in the promotional material. It's on the poster, it's, you know, in the trailers. That stunt is insane. There is like a long sequence with that scene, and the whole time you are on the edge of your seat. You are like, holy shit, how is he going to manage to do this? And you will not predict how it happens. You will not predict how it goes. Like, it's just not possible to predict it because you're just sitting there like, how is this even possible? And in my head, of course, I'm, you know, paying attention to the story. I'm immersed into the story, but I'm also thinking like, how the hell did they film this? Like, this is Tom Cruise is actually on this plane right now. This isn't like CGI background or anything. Like, he's actually on this plane. I'm sure some of the shots they cut to, they probably were in a studio for. I'm sure there's always that movie magic that makes it all work, but just in general, there's a lot of shots you can clearly tell, yes, he is physically on that plane, dangling off of it right now. You have no idea how the hell they managed to make it work, but they did, and it looked incredible every second. There's another big sequence involving a submarine. Of course, that was also in the trailers. That stuff was jaw-dropping as well. Like, I was just like, holy shit, how is he gonna figure this out? How is he gonna get out of the situation? And again, you can't predict what's gonna happen next. It's very unpredictable and just amazing to look at. But it's not just incredible stunts. There is also some incredible fight scenes, and I guess that would also involve stunts, but there's not as many fight scenes in this film. When you're talking just like hand-to-hand combat, I would say some of the other films actually have a bit more, but there's a couple in particular that are just incredible in this film. There's one that I was like so in love with, just the way it was shot, the way it was choreographed. It looked so clean, and it was incredible to see. And probably one of the most important things about this film is the emotion behind it. And I was hoping there was going to be a lot of emotional moments because, I mean, you're not really like watching Mission Impossible movies for the emotional connections between the characters. I mean, sure, that exists, but it's not really why you're watching them. But given the fact that this is supposed to be the last of this franchise, I feel like you have to go out in a way that makes the characters feel more connected to each other than they ever have before. And they managed to do that here to the point where there's like 2 scenes that make me cry, because there's a lot of good emotion between the characters here, and there's a variety of emotions going on there. There's a lot of sad scenes, there's a lot of hopeful scenes, there's a lot of just scenes that make you tear up just because of the fact that you can't believe you're watching something so incredible and so amazing to look at. And the music also plays a big role. Soundtrack is incredible here, but that also plays a big role in how you're going to feel emotionally in that scene, and the soundtrack is handled very well in this film. But of course, this wouldn't be possible without all of the amazing characters, and I don't think this has the best cast of characters. I think there's definitely a couple other films that have better characters in general, but I do really enjoy what they give to the existing characters here. Of course, Ethan Hunt, you have Benji, you have Grace, you have Luther, Paris, a lot of great characters. And honestly, one of the standout characters of this movie that I was not expecting whatsoever is actually Angela Bassett's character, Erica. She was not in too much of the other movies. She only had like a couple different appearances, but she was incredible in this film. Like, they actually gave her a lot more to do, and I think her part to play in the movie, although it was very disconnected from the storyline going on with Ethan, well, not necessarily disconnected, but in terms of like they weren't physically, you know, in the same room as each other for that much of the film, those scenes were incredible. Like, really enjoyed them. So I like that they were able to give so much to each of these characters for their final outing. Would I've liked even more? Honestly, yeah, but they still gave enough to the point where I got fulfilled story-wise with this film. And when it comes to the story itself, I do think they actually have quite an interesting commentary on nuclear war and artificial intelligence. Obviously, this is all carrying over from the Dead Reckoning film. It's not, you know, completely new concepts, but I do really enjoy the way they touch on it in this movie. And like I said with Angela Bassett's character, it's a lot to do with her. Like, there's a big focus on choices she has to make, and a lot of them are like really tough choices that make you think there's really no good outcome. Like, I would think out of any Mission Impossible film, the stakes are probably the highest they've ever been in this film, to the point where if not every single thing goes exactly the perfect way for the characters, they're all dead. Like, that's basically the plot of this movie, and that's, I mean, that's the title, Mission Impossible, right? That's the whole idea of it. It's supposed to be a very impossible mission to accomplish. And that's exactly what this movie delivers, because every single scene, they're like, how in the hell are we going to do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense how we're going to pull this off. And that's the appeal of it. That's the appeal of most of these movies. But this one, I think, does it in such a way where the characters start to think, we might have to find some alternatives, and those alternatives are downright terrible. Like, they're horrible alternatives that could result in millions of people dying, but it could also save billions in the process. And so these characters have to make really tough decisions because of that. But of course, the movie is not without flaw. There are some negatives that I have about it, and honestly, this one was kind of iffy for me, because I do like the fact that they make a lot of callbacks to the prior films. That's actually a big negative I've been hearing from a lot of other reviewers. They've been focusing on the fact that there's just a lot of callbacks. I don't actually hate that, but I don't necessarily think it's like a positive for me either. It was just kind of an aspect of the movie they threw in there where there's a lot of references and callbacks to the older films in ways that, like I said, I think works sometimes, and then other times it doesn't work as well. But my main issue is the exposition. There was so much exposition dumping in this film, and it kind of felt weird. Like, it's almost like they didn't trust the audience to remember the prior movies, so they were just kind of like telling you everything. And you know, honestly, it helped me because I was kind of in a place where I was like, you know, I haven't seen Dead Reckoning since it released, so there was a couple things I forgot, and they reminded me in like 2 seconds because there was so much exposition dumping. So honestly, it worked as intended, but I usually don't like when movies do that because sometimes it feels inorganic. There's ways to do it in organic ways, but I feel like the way this movie does it was just a little bit inorganic. Didn't really work as well as it should have. And then kind of similarly to that point, there are some scenes where characters literally just state the obvious out loud in a conversation. Like, I'm like, what? We know, like like, just for an example, there's like a scene where the characters are talking about like the possibility of a nuclear, you know, Armageddon happening with all the different nukes around the world, and like every now and then you'll have a character randomly in the room, they'll just come out and be like, that'll start nuclear war, and it's like, yeah, what, like, get on the same page as everyone else, bud. Like, we know that. Like so many scenes like that. And it's not just with like random characters. Sometimes it's like, you know, Benji will have a scene like that where he'll say something out loud and it's like, that's kind of obvious. And, you know, I don't really know what's the point of it. I think part of it is, again, part of the exposition where it's not trusting the audience to understand the plot enough. So they have to have characters say it out loud to make sure that point is bludgeoned into the audience member's face so they will not leave this movie not understanding what happened, because it is a complex story. It really is, to be honest. So I understand the purpose of that. They don't want people to leave this movie being like, I don't really understand that. I don't understand that. They don't want people to feel that way. But I consider that a negative because I think you should trust the audience regardless of if people don't understand it or not. I think it's important to trust them and just let the movie go from there. And if you want to find other ways to deliver exposition, there definitely is better ways to do it. But I just think there was a couple scenes where I was like, that didn't really work. The dialogue felt off because you were clearly trying to get a point across that, in my opinion, could have gotten across in another way. But overall, this film is nearly perfect for me. I thought it was such a fantastic way to end this amazing franchise. For a rating, I'm going to give it a 9.2 out of 10. I really wanted to like this even more than Dead Reckoning, and I'm honestly not sure if I did or not. I love Dead Reckoning, just for reference, but it's kind of like they're almost on par with each other for me. They're not better than Fallout. Fallout, I'm sorry, you're just not beat. That's a 10 out of 10 movie for me. So like, you're not beating Fallout, but you know, there are moments that I do think were even better than Fallout. Like some of those stunts I would say are, you know, even better than that film, but I just think as a whole film, it doesn't really hit the same highs as Fallout as a whole. Still, it's a fantastic way to end this franchise, and overall made this franchise retroactively even better. Like, it just did it. It did find some ways to wrap up some storylines from prior movies, some that I didn't think really needed to be like brought back and wrapped up, but they did. And you know what? It worked. I really enjoyed this. Definitely one of my favorite films of the year so far. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will see you all in my next one. Peace out.